Another exciting episode of the Working in Tech live stream. It's been a Super Bowl weekend for us on this live stream, as Chris is the third guest we're having on in 24 hours. We've never done it before. This is the first time. So it's super exciting. And one of the reasons why I'm pumped to talk to Christopher Leveston today is because he's an IT professional who's basically charted his own path to network engineering success. He made the move into tech from working on Target and UPS, and now he's a network engineer. And since being in the tech industry, which is another interesting thing, is that he's worked in different roles, including tech support, sysadmin, and infrastructure management. He has an arsenal of certifications, including CCNA, Azure, AWS, Network Plus, Security Plus, and he exemplifies something that I personally really love, which is sometimes hustle can actually be college degrees. And true relentless skill building and seizing, different chances and opportunities to grow, he's been able to build an incredible career. And I'm hoping that today on this stream, he'll share his journey in mastering the network engineering stack on his own terms. And, I want to also unpack with him some of the proven tactics that has helped him land his first job and grow in the different roles he's been in. Plus, choosing the right certifications, because that's also key, and standing out without a CS degree and excelling as a self-made engineering. I almost want to call you a leader now because of the amazing work you do
Oh
inspiring
man.
other people. It's great to have you on the show, Chris.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. It's an honor to be here and to be able to share my journey with everyone who's watching. And it's a long journey, challenging journey, and it's continuing. I always call it a marathon. It's
Yeah.
never ending, it's never stopping, and especially in tech, things are always evolving and changing. So it's great to be here to share my journey with everyone. So,
And that's really dope. So one of the things that I want to like shine a light on, right off the bat is, you started, your career, essentially not your tech career, but your working career, working at Target and UPS before making the pivot into tech. What
exactly.
inspired that career switch?
Definitely, yeah. So definitely what inspired that career switch was the money, right? I'm just gonna be real with it. It's working the minimum wage and then, not being able to pay for certain things, or, you could pay for the car, but you can't move out because you're not making
Mm,
enough, and it's dealing with that. Um, but also coming from that retail world, so coming from Target, and even actually, I haven't told anyone, but I actually worked at Family Dollar really
mm.
right before Target. I just never added it in. It was just a short amount of time. But those skills definitely transitioned over great into my first IT role, which we'll get to later on. But being able to speak and talk, and you will see that a lot in the very first IT roles. You're going to be speaking to a lot of people, and IT pretty much in general, you're going to be speaking to a lot. So that retail stuff, that pretty much what prompted me to get in was I wanted to do something more. I wanted to have more skills to do. I was an artist. I was drawing and painting and graphic design work. But over time, I always had this per se this interest in technology. In high school, I took an engineering class, and I remember doing like the whole 3D train and how we can explode the 3D figure and how we can look at all the 3D designs of the train. But there was this one guy who was learning C++, and I always wanted to take the class, but I never did. But I always would code on the side. Man, this is like years ago when I wasn't going to high school. And seeing how this guy would design this video game, he was actually making the game. I was like, man, he
Wow.
got Bleach characters, he got Naruto characters. I'm like, man, he's actually coding this because I can see him putting in the values and creating the variables and all that in the IDE. So I was like, man, this is crazy. so so that kind of prompted my career switch. Was mostly the coding, but I was working at Target doing that, and then I would code on the side and learn about web development. And then I grew and grew and grew and got deeper into tech. And I was like, man, let me go ahead and actually make the move. and make more money, right? So
Mm.
yeah.
That is so important, and I like two things that you touched on there
Mhm.
really much. It's like, people can sometimes get bashed for chasing money in tech. I
Mhm.
love it personally,
Yeah.
right? Because I definitely believe that you should build a career to be fulfilled. So definitely
Mhm.
be maybe
Exactly.
fulfilled in form of feeling like you're contributing something to the world, but you have to
Mhm.
get something back too, right? If you're
Exactly.
putting out your best work, you should be getting the best value for that. So I
Mhm.
really like that. And I like that. That's a big reason why a lot of people are switching in tech. Now you should find an area where you're passionate about,
Mhm.
but definitely don't let nobody tell you
Yeah.
that, you shouldn't
Yeah.
go after the money. You should.
And also too, to even working at those UPS days where I would wake up every morning, my thumb would be stuck because of the boxes I would be lifting. And it's like I gotta I gotta do something. So waking up those early hours and then you moving your body and then man stuff is hurting or waking up with trigger finger and all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, I gotta do something. So that's another reason too, right? Trying to better your life, trying to better the quality of your life. And
Mhm.
to this day, I don't regret ever making that change into tech.
So, one thing that you can never take for granted in this tech journey, because I think I almost feel like it's important now to always set that precedent. So, I see a lot of people online, especially like, influencer types or like boot camps trying to make a quick dollar, say, oh, you could do this in 60 days or 45 days or 3 months or that. The
Mhm.
typical tech journey is usually longer and harder than that. The good thing is it's worth it if you put in the time, but it's also not something that's just a cakewalk. And I think
Mhm.
it's important because if you set the right perspective and you have the right mindset, it's going to help you succeed versus like if somebody promises you it's 45 days and you're in 6 months and it's not working, you're going to quit. But if you think about it, like most people who go into tech, who go the traditional route, which is college, will spend anywhere from 4 to 5 years just to get that dream. So if you even get it to happen in 2 years, you're still doing it a lot faster than most people. And that's for me is the important perspective. I guess ultimately my main question then is how did you gain the IT experience on the one hand, and
Mhm.
also the skills on the other hand that helped you land that first role? And what was that journey like?
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, so I can go back right after finishing my graphic design. I won't call it a degree, but it was a program that I had in community college. And I had so much credits, right? And as I was going through and learning about how to get into tech, how to get into network engineering, I went back to the same community college. But I knew that, okay, I won't be able to earn a degree because I have so many credits. I couldn't pay for it. I was getting a Pell Grant, but the school was like, well, we can't keep giving you the Pell Grant because you had all these credits from the last program. And
Mm,
so I was on and off. So it's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn whatever I can at the very beginning, like IT help desk stuff, how to do Active Directory, doing labs at the home, right? And then as I'm taking these programs at the community college, I am networking with the professors there. So
mm,
I had a cabling professor. I networked with him, and then the big one was my Network Plus professor. This was right before the whole COVID-19 shutdown happened, and I was networking with him and learning about the basics of networks, and that's how what I did was I would learn after school, work, go to school and then learn late at night, building actual labs. And it'll be like Active Directory, how to create group policies, how to do all of this stuff. And I would then study the A plus material. So all the labs that I do, not only would I just read the book and then that's it, I would spin up virtual machines. I would pretty much do everything as I'm reading that book. I'm taking it slow. I'm taking it slow because that's just how I comprehend is actually touching the actual, really laughing. As a lot of you all who
mm,
who do follow me in my content, I laugh a lot, and that's what sticks to me. So that's how I got able to gain the skills. But to get to the actual job that got me that first job, it was really the connections and showing my professor the labs that I was doing. And
mm,
right before the shutdown happened, he my professor wanted me to. take the A plus. He said, look, I want you to take the A plus and let me know the first part because they had two parts. They had two parts. Take the first part and then let me know when you finish it. So I went ahead and was labbing and labbing, and all everything from the hardware side of the computer, all the A plus, the first part is all hardware, and then the second part is software. So I did that. I learned all that, and then I went ahead and texted him. He like, all right, cool. Now take the second part. So so I went ahead and was just keep learning and learning. What I didn't know was later on, after letting him know that I did pass the second part, he was looking to move on from a school he was working at. He worked like three different IT jobs,
Mm,
and he saw like I listened to exactly what he said. He like complete this part, complete the second part, reach back out to me. Um, he worked at the community college, so he was the Network Plus professor there. He worked at two other smaller private schools, and one of the private schools in the south side of Chicago, he wanted me to actually take the role over for him. The role, it was a director of IT position, but it was sort of like everything. So it was everything from help desk, desktop support, networking, security, installing physical stuff. So that role, the connection, and then also uh, learning and labbing the material, and then getting that role based on the connection that I had. That entire role set the foundation for all the future roles. I learned everything there at the
mm,
school. And we're talking a school that didn't have a lot of budget. There were computers that were over 10 years old still there, a lab with the virus infested machines. So that entire school period, well, not school period, but that entire position there set up the foundation for everything else. And I even taught IT there for a semester, and that was pretty cool because I actually learned more stuff by teaching the students there, which I actually
mm.
find very interesting. Right, is teaching. And
Yep.
I do want to go back to that because it now it solidifies my knowledge, but it's also teaching the next generation about the stuff. Seeing students come in and doing homework on their cell phones, and it's like, now you guys have computers that I fixed. It's like we need to start learning how to type. Like we need to start learning how to do how the real world is, right? Uh, so just learning all the basics of like the computer and all that, and had them teaching, and that they had like a HTML web development finals, and I showed them how to build a website, HTML and CSS, no JavaScript because that was just crazy. So, but but yeah, so that's pretty much where I got a lot of my skills from, was that very first position. It wasn't being paid a lot, but the pay wasn't too important. The skills was. I know I may get knocked for that, but if it's your first IT position and you're really trying to get in, and finances is not that crazy, because I was living with my parents. I had a car note, but that was all. I didn't really have that many bills. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and learn a bunch of this stuff. And it was a hard
Mm,
job. It was very hard. And we're talking COVID-19. Teachers are teaching remotely at the building, and all the students are at home. Wi-Fi signals are all screwed up. They don't have enough access points. Being able to deploy that stuff in the school, that like doing all of that, figuring out the budget, what the school can spend, being presented with that money, saying, okay, what can I do? What can I do to update the MDF? What firewall? This firewall is from 2007. And we're talking, this is 2020 at the time. So a firewall from 2007. It's just like, yeah, we need to update this. Figuring out, okay, how do I get the information off of this one and put it on the new one? Learning that stuff straight on. There was no one. I had my professor. He was there at certain times to mentor me, show me around the ropes, show me around everything. But then there was a certain point he told me, he's like, look, um, this is going to be my last time here, but I feel confident that you can go ahead, you can learn as much as you can and get this school up and running. So that was how I got a lot of my experience.
mm. You've touched on so many things that are like almost become conventional wisdom for anyone who watches this live stream. And I want to break them down for anybody who's watching for the first time, just in case, like, because it was a lot of gems, right? I
Yeah,
think the first one is money is important in tech, but not for your first role. I
exactly.
think the difference between how good you can get between like learning everything you can on your own and doing the certifications and actually doing that first job is like the difference between a swimming pool and the ocean.
Exactly.
Because and both literally and figuratively, right? Because the you learning is a controlled environment. Nothing can break that breaks anything. But when you're learning, especially in a challenging role as you described, so not only are you building out the tech infrastructure or modernizing that tech infrastructure to help your students learn better, you're also teaching them. So it's like
Exactly.
you have to figure out. It's basically like an end to end in like two different directions, right?
Mhm.
And that's so much learning that when you go into that next role, it almost becomes like, yeah, what challenge are you talking about? That's one. Then, secondly, is the impact of having a mentor. See,
Mhm.
one of the reasons why many people grow up in the dark or get overwhelmed in tech is like, again, I talk about like your plethora of certifications, but you built it brick by brick.
Exactly.
Imagine someone coming out with no experience and just sees your profile. It's like, oh, he has CCNA. Should I get that? He has A plus. Should I get that? He has this. Should I get that? It's like being able to see someone who's been there and say, you know what, forget the next 10, just do this one. In fact, what you said was there are two parts. So he says, just do the first part. I think having that level of clarity is super important.
Yes.
But I think my final piece, which kind of like is a nice segue into the next question, is there's been a lot of debate lately about the importance or lack thereof of tech certifications. I think looking at your profile shows that you fall on the previous side. Is do you agree with the view, or if you don't, how exactly? Maybe is it that people are using certifications wrongly, or again, what's your take on that?
Definitely. So I did fall into that realm of, oh, I need to get this certification in the beginning. But then what I realized, the best and smart move to take is to take the certification as you're working that position related to that certification, or if you're learning that position related to it. So I slowed down. So as I was working in the school, I had the A plus at that time, but my knowledge was only the hardware and software of like Windows machines, Macs, Linux, anything that was related to the A plus material, learning how to go into Windows Server, creating user accounts. It wasn't until it's like, okay, I need to learn how the network works. Then I started learning network plus material and actually getting certified in that. And then I started building and increasing my knowledge because of what I learned in the network plus material. I started incorporating that at the job and started doing things there. Then I wanted to focus on, okay, I see this firewall, and this new firewall can do a bunch of security stuff, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to create SSL VPNs and having the teachers to log in. I don't know how to do that stuff. So not only did I just read like the security plus material, but I actually just went on YouTube and just type in, okay, this is how this firewall works. This is how you create this. And I would do that while I was at the school. I would just go on YouTube, okay, this is how to do this, right? And would do that as I'm working there. So when I got into the knock role, that's when I was, learning about, okay, what route do I want to go deeper into networking? And that would get me to, okay, the CCNA. Do I want to do the CCNA Encore? Do I want to do the CCNA Security? There's so many different routes to take. And this was right when Cisco changed their track. So their track was kind of new now. So I was like, oh man, now I gotta the track is new. But what I'm trying to say is the best thing you can do is get the certifications as you're working in that related field. And then when you decide to advance, then start trying to, at the same time you learn that for certification, try to network with people that are in that role. So if you're at the help desk or desktop support, but networking people there, you know, try to chat with them, try to chop it up with them. And then also learn the networking material, whether you're trying to get straight to the CCNA or you're going to do the network plus, whichever one it is. But always related to the position that you're trying to go to next, and don't try to advance like, okay, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get the CCNA, I want to get the CCBMP and all this stuff, and it's your certificates are far ahead than the role that you're in. I
Mm.
think that's an important thing at the same time. But it's making sure that your experience is catching up, are in the same
Mm.
certifications. I think that's very important.
And I think something that even really makes, something that resonates as you say that is, instead of trying to get too far ahead for somewhere you're not even qualified for in this moment, right? It's about how can you deepen that knowledge. I like the piece that you talked about YouTube. So it's not even necessarily getting that next certification.
Hmm.
This one that you have, how much have you deepened every area of knowledge in there, right? Have you gone and watched like 10 different videos? So let's say there's a networking concept. Have you watched 10 videos on that concept outside of the lessons in that certification?
Exactly.
So now you're now a super expert, or you just are very super knowledgeable that there's almost no question they can ask you in an interview that you won't be able to answer, versus like now going to get a CISSP in cybersecurity. And it's like, when you get in an interview, that knowledge is not, it's good knowledge, but it's not
Hmm.
going to be useful. And most importantly, too, that knowledge even dies because you're not really using it day to day. So it's all, I really like that piece.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So w- I think you've touched on this question, but again, I want to ask you, maybe you have also maybe more perspective to share. So what certifications were most important for breaking into the tech roles you've worked in, and why?
Gotcha. Well, because of my connection, a lot of people they may hit on the CompTIA certifications, but the CompTIA, they help me. Forget it. But I will say, like the certification that was the biggest turning point in my career was getting the CCNA. I started getting a lot of hits on my LinkedIn regarding that. But again, it was the experience prior to getting that CCNA,
Mm,
working at the school and working at the knock, and then being a network technician after the knock. You know,
mm,
um, some people may knock on the whole, oh, I was working remote, and let's say for example, working remote at a previous job and then going on site at the next job. That's not a bad thing at all.
no.
What the reason why working at a knock and then also being a network technician is a really great combination for anyone who want to get into networking and become an engineer, is the fact that while working at a knock, and if it's a hybrid position, you're working remote and you're not able to see the network, but you're working with the technician on the other end.
Mm,
When you're the technician, now you have the other side of that. So now you have the physical view of all the networking, but now you're also communicating with the engineer on the other side. So you get
mm,
both. Now you have both experiences. You had the experience when you were remote working at a knock, and then you had the experience when you were a network technician.
mm,
Those skills, and then getting the CCNA afterwards, that's what really helped, because not only did they see the CCNA, but they saw the knock and the network technician role before that. Um, so yes, I will say CompTIA, they helped me to get in. The A plus, the network plus, and the security plus, that trifecta that everyone talks about. Um, but again, it's the experience within those certificates that really shows recruiters that, okay, not only did he just go out and just get the certs, but he's gotten the experience too. We can see it in his resume. So
wow. There's another major key you just unlocked again that I want to touch on. I don't think we've touched on it very much, but it's something that I always think about. I think when you're very early career or just breaking in, target for your first two roles to be on site.
hmm
I know we like the glamour of remote work. We want to sit at home and just kick our feet up when we're not doing anything else. And that's great. I'm not knocking on that. But there's nothing, one of the biggest parts of working in tech is not even the technology, it's the people, working with the people, understanding. You were talking, even very first role, you were talking budgets.
yes,
Those kind of decisions don't get made lightly. And you've been able to advocate for what you need, because if you think about it, there are other priorities fighting for that same budget.
Mhm.
So for something that's been neglected for so long, it can get neglected again. But if you
Exactly.
go and advocate and build a good relationship, now you can get more allocation to be able to drive your programs and make you more successful. Because if you don't have resources, it's hard to be successful.
hmm
That is, but understanding even the nuances of those conversations is a lot easier in person than remotely. So
Exactly.
you could be missing out on a lot, not necessarily maybe skill wise or whatever, but the soft skills. And those are even in some cases more important than the hard technical skills. I want to go back to the story of your professor again, right?
Yes.
Him seeing your grind, him seeing what you were able to do, made him say, you know what, maybe I'm overwhelmed with this opportunity or whatever everything else is, and says, I'm going to take you straight from student to employee, and you're going to have a job that I used to have.
Mm.
That is a level of trust that, a lot of people, that could be the difference between like applying for 6 months to a year to get a job. That just
Exactly.
happened in an instance because somebody was able to say, I like what you're doing and I want to give you this opportunity. So I just want to touch on that quickly. If you have an opportunity to get a role, I don't think focusing on remote is the right answer, especially when you're starting out. If you could get an on-site or hybrid opportunity, I think that's even better.
Yes.
So, one of the things that I saw in your experience was that you taught technology classes, and I think you've also touched on it here. In tech, again, speaking about that people piece, one of the things that you have to do is being able to share or explain technical concepts to non-technical people.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
that experience as a teacher help you being able to now
Yes.
do it in your career day to day?
Yeah. So, you're talking to high school students, you're teaching them, right? And a lot of times where I was at, it's very hard for them to get those resources. A lot didn't have computers at their house.
Mm,
A lot only used their cell phones. Um, but what helped me explain things to them in the easiest ways will always just come up with projects or games that we would do, or
mm,
make it more simplify it, but also add videos to it, but also, hey, I'm going to split this class up here, and I'm going to split this class up here, and we're going to talk about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. So we did a whole concept, a whole class on blockchain technology, and it was more of like an emerging technology section that we had towards the end of the semester. And what was
mm,
one was those was the blockchain. We talked about robotics, artificial intelligence, and we talked. And this is from 2021. So we were talking about AI. Now we see it's big now, right?
yep,
so
yep.
so we talked about a lot of that, and I showed videos, but being able to explain that stuff to students and then seeing them get it and then be like, oh, okay, showing them, okay, this is how I can access a phone, an internet phone, because it's not secure. There's no password. And I would show them. I would say, hey, okay, I'm logging into the person's main office phone right now and changing their background to the Kali Linux Dragon logo. And then I get a call from the lady in the office. She say, hey, something's wrong with my phone. Oh, that's just me. I'm teaching the students. You don't have to worry about it. So I would do fun things like that, right? And then make sure I lock it up so they don't try to do it. But but I would do fun things like that. But that that experience right there, teaching students, that transitions into, now you're talking to the end customers, people who may
Mm,
not be familiar with certain technologies, like current job now, working with Fortinet equipment, right? I'm
mm,
learning Fortinet as myself, but when a customer may have questions that I may know and they not as technical, I can explain it easier to them, right? And it all that goes back to when I was talking and teaching with students,
mm,
and I feel like I feel like the soft skills are very important, and that also goes to way back when I was working in retail, when I was working at targeting electronics department, and I would get people, senior citizens, come in wanting a smartphone, and they coming from a flip phone, so teaching them and showing them, okay, this is how you can, move around in the menu and do all this stuff. And, the managers be like, man, you gotta get back to work. But I like teaching. Like,
mm,
I like actually teaching. So I would get people that would come in for that, or they may have questions regarding hertz and TVs and all that stuff. All those soft skills. So if you're working in retail, you're working at a restaurant, or you're working at anywhere where you have to talk and speak, working at a hospital, whatever it is, that stuff helps tremendously when you get into tech, because you're going to be talking to customers all the time. I thought maybe and when I was, before tech, I was like, oh, I just want to I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to go ahead, log in, and just code all day. But there will be a point in time, and this goes to businesses too as well. If you're running a business or anything of that matter, like when I was doing my graphic design business at the time, talking to the clients, talking to the customers. And, when you're in IT, you're going to be talking to people. And I believe if you can break that ice, you can break out of that shell, whether you're teaching students or you're working in retail, that stuff shakes off, and then you're like, oh, this is nothing, and it makes your job easier because you're not as nervous talking to people all the time. Yeah, everyone gets those nerves, but that experience working at that school and teaching those students and making it as simple as possible, and then gradually increasing their knowledge by explaining it a little more technical over time, that stuff helps a lot.
Wow. You know, there's something that I've learned in kind of like the different books I've read, but just even from my human interactions, it's like oftentimes as people, we're always so self-absorbed and self-concerned that if only sometimes we open up our eyes to look at what other people were thinking, we would actually be more successful in the things that we're trying to do.
Mm.
And kids love pranks. They love
Mhm.
um cool things. Like if you start talking about some ancient thing, it's like, yeah, boring.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you start to tell me, oh, I could actually do this interesting thing I've been meaning to do
Uh,
with this technology, then it's going to be like, tell me more about this technology,
mhm.
right? But if you focus more on me first before worrying about what you want to tell me, I think that's successful. And that's a very important, like, communication skill. I, for one, like one of the things I used to think, before I started to doing all my learnings was like, you hear this cliche all the time, like communication is one of the top skills in tech and things like
Yeah.
that. But it truly is.
Yes, it
And,
is.
but not in ways that people think, because we talk a lot as human
Mm.
beings. So we think we're communicating. You might not be communicating,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
talking, but you're not,
Talking, yeah. It's
but
different.
you're not
Uh,
communicating. But I really like that you use those examples as ways that you were able to kind of like unlock value for your students. And now it's a lot going to be easier. Something that one of my friends who works in sales say is like, you get relegated to who you sound like. And what that means in terms is like, if you get in front of a CEO and you start talking too much in technical terms, they're going to call an engineer or a CTO to come deal with you. But you know what just happened in that sale? You've potentially lost the sale
mm,
because you've got into the level of decision making and you've now cycled it back
mm.
down where
Yes.
they can now model you and argue. So in that case, you have to think, what does the CEO care about? So he wants more profits, he wants less losses, he wants this, he wants that. Let's talk about that first. He might ask you questions about, okay, so tell me how this technology works. Only then do you want to go technical. But even
Exactly.
then, especially if it's not a technical CEO too, you want to be able to abstract away too many of those nitty gritty details
Mm,
and just go to explaining, okay, so, part of the biggest challenges is that maybe as a bank, the biggest risk that you're going to face is, people trying to basically siphon money away from bank accounts. He
yes.
gets that, right? So what we've done is, we're layering this extra level of authentication onto the software to ensure that, for example, if someone is logging in from a location that they typically wouldn't be, now there'll be extra verification required. You're talking technology, but you're not really
Yeah.
talking
You
technology.
establish that relatability. But
Exactly.
yeah, exactly, in that starting point, and then now you can go, okay, now I can attack him more with the more technical, but because he understands it because you just related to him. So that's definitely a good point too as well. And I always try to do that too, especially if I'm talking to customers.
Mm.
Uh, like there's a cutover going on, and they don't want to spend a crazy amounts of money because of the amount of time. So when you say, okay, I can put all these diagrams together. That'll speed up the process for the text to understand. That'll decrease the amount of budget that you guys would need, and you won't have to spend too much and go over budget. So it's give them, and then it hypes them up. You're like, okay, I get it now. Yeah, yeah.
That's so interesting. That's so
Mhm.
interesting. So, okay, one of the things that you talked about, because I really want you to kind of like go into it a little bit more, like your retail experience
Yes,
and like you then working, in tech support. How is that? Again, those two are very similar in terms of like at least the core skill, not in the technical skill, but the core skill, which is still based around people. What
yes.
were some of those things that you saw that really transitioned over?
Phone calls, answering the phone, right? Um, when working at the electronics department at Target, it was a small department. They usually designated one person for each one. Because I had electronics, I also had the toys department and also the seasonal department. So whenever there's different seasons, and I have to answer calls related to that, answer calls related to toys, and then answer calls related to electronics. So I had to focus on like three different things, and know what to say to the customer regarding, okay, we have this in stock or that in stock. But answering those phone calls, speaking to them not face to face, and then when they come in, approaching them and then talking to them face to face, and then showing them around and say, okay, we can do this, or we can probably change something. If we can't sell you this TV, this is the best brand after them. We can coming up with those different alternatives to the customer. If they can't do this, what's a good alternative to that without compromising on what they want?
Mm,
That also transitioned to when I was working at the NOC, because it was network admin, but it was also more like tech support. So it's like a hybrid of both. You know, front lines, you're getting calls coming in, and it brings me back to when I was working at Target. You get a call. You're not gonna know when you're gonna get a call, but you're gonna get one, and you're gonna have to pick it up, and you're gonna have to introduce yourself. Hey, thank you for calling Target Electronics, yada yada yada. Thank you for calling Peerless Network. This is yada yada. Do the introduction. It's the same thing. It carries on. It carries on,
mm,
and that's the same thing. And when you're working with tickets and sending emails out, thank you for contacting yada yada yada. At the end of your emails, and you send them off, or, close tickets out. All that is the communication process, and that that all carries on. So whatever job you're leaving, and when you're transitioning to tech, you're taking all those skills you earned from there, and you're going, you blasting off like a rocket. Um, that's um that's definitely what has helped me a lot, is and seeing a lot, is those phone calls, answering those calls. Now I don't do the tech support and getting those calls a lot because of the new position that I have. Is more of, let's contact the customer, let's set up meetings, and some will have video on, some won't have video on, but it's the same thing. It's not as many calls as it was working at a knock, but you're still answering phone calls, and now
mm.
all that just carries on. It just adds on and adds on. It's like a video game, right? Experience points, it just adds on, man. And then just think it as simple as that. And yeah, so
That's another fire analogy.
yep, 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 yep,
So, as someone who is self-taught in IT, um, what is what advice do you have for someone who may be coming from a non-tech traditional background? But hold that thought before you answer. I want to
gotcha.
give a quick PSA. Welcome to the stream. If you're just joining, like, share, and subscribe. Again, you don't want to be the only one who's getting all this goodness that's coming out of this podcast. Make sure your friends who are trying to switch into tech too, or anyone else for that matter, sees what we're sharing, all the fire that Chris is sharing on this stream today. And it's just about an answer. For anyone who's going the self-taught route, what tips would you give them?
Definitely. So if you're coming from a non-technical background and you're trying to get into tech, I would definitely do this is what I would do. I would definitely see if there's any stuff laying around, you know, especially if you're non-technical with computers and whatnot. The A plus material, that's great. It doesn't have all the content in it, but I don't want you to think directly at just the certificate alone. I want you to actually go around, if you have like computers laying around or a laptop, and just tinker with it. If you're not using it, take it apart, see all the different stuff. Google, YouTube. Then you have the A plus material. You don't have to focus on getting a certificate, but just reading on what the topics are in the A plus. Um, Play around with a lot of stuff. When I was young, real young, I used to just take apart stuff. Sometimes I wouldn't know how to put it back together, but but I always would take apart stuff, and just going online. I watched a ton of YouTube videos about different graphics cards. The difference between Intel and AMD. What's this new stuff with AI now coming out with AI chips and all that. Just going on, and here's a really good thing with what I do with the Data Buddy Tech News podcast that I do. It really sprang for me going online and looking at tech articles, news about different tech. That that really helps. You wake up one morning and there's some stuff like, oh man, I heard about this Chat GPT thing, or man, I heard about, you know, Sam Altman wanting $7 trillion for AI chips. Why? Go ahead and go ahead and Google it, search on it. Figure out what it is. Like what is this all about? And then that puts you into a rabbit hole of a lot of different stuff. And then you may not know. You may be like, oh, I might be interested in machine learning, or I may be interested in programming, or I may be interested in building networks, building computers, security. I may be interested in learning how viruses. The hospital in Chicago right now, Lurie's Children's Hospital, I believe they're still down. It's been over a week, and it's
Wow,
and it's due to ransomware. Right? It's a children's hospital, and it's very sad to hear that.
that is nasty
Uh,
work.
yes, but going online and viewing that and reading those articles and being like, maybe you feel something about that, man. Maybe you knew someone, a child of yours, or maybe you know someone who has a child that has to go to one of those hospitals, and it kind of hurt you, right? And you do want to get into tech, and maybe that security route is the route to take for you. Maybe you're interested in that, defending stuff like that. Then once you figure out what you want to do, then you can go ahead and then you can figure out, say, what do I need to take or learn? How do I need to do this? Pinpoint it. Just keep pinpointing. Just keep going down until it becomes more of a more straighter path. Paths aren't going to always be straight. There's always going to be different routes to take within that main path. But now you at least have a sense and an idea of what you want to do. So if you're new and you get into tech, discover all different things, right? Don't stick to one thing. Always try to go to different things and see what sticks to you, what interests you the most. And then now it's a little bit more easier now to figure out, okay, if I do take this tech route, I at least know where I want to go, and then that will spring to, okay, this is what I need to take and learn. Um, Maybe you want to go to school. These are the programs I need to take, to get into this. I can make connections with people. These are groups that I can join online. This is how I can set up my resume, different things like that. So it all
Mm.
comes down to knowing what you want to do, and it all comes from being experimenting with a lot of different stuff. I think that's very important when you first get in.
Mm. I really like what you shared about like even like things like the news articles and following,
Mhm.
because I think those are very important. Staying up to the tech is always changing, and being the kind of person who stays up to date is one of the ways to win in tech.
Yes.
My next question is, what's your process for preparing for and passing,
Yeah.
certifications like that, like the CCNA?
Yeah. So, um, I'll always have a book. I'm a book guy. I know a lot of people do PDFs too. That's cool too. There's nothing wrong with those at all. Especially if you have a bookshelf like mine that's about to collapse. But you definitely would need a PDF at some point unless I buy more bookshelves. But definitely a book. Um, and then also video. So whatever video resource, whether it's free, whether you want to go on Udemy, whatever it is, match have that video course and a book. That way, maybe you get tired of watching the video. Maybe you want to take a piece of the video, the topic that they're talking about on the video, and go into the book and read it a little bit deeper. Maybe you're stuck on something. You may, man, let me go to this chapter because this chapter is talking about what this video is talking about right now. If I can go to this topic, the book can give me more details, and it's a little more of a slower process. It's not too much stimulation. You're just reading it. Uh,
Mm,
and then my most important thing of all is the labs, right?
mm,
For example, if you are taking your A plus, there are no lab or any content in that A plus that talks or go deep into Active Directory, Windows
mm,
Server. So taking the YouTube, those videos, right, and then actually building VirtualBox. Go in VirtualBox, download it. It's free, and then download the images, and then install those virtual machines, and then start labbing that way.
mm,
And that's if your computer can handle it. But yes, definitely lab, a book resource, and videos. And it could be as many videos as possible. It doesn't have to be one or two videos, and it doesn't have to be three. It could be as many videos as you as you see fit for you, for your learning experience.
Mm.
Everyone learns differently. I happen to, and I didn't like reading when I was younger, but I happen to now like to read more. And then the videos, I would do later if I like, man, I don't feel like reading. I at least have the video to go to and be like, okay, well, this is where I left off in the book. Let me go to the video and do it that way. Um, but yeah, man, that's videos, books, and labs.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
So usually we're coming up on our Q&A
Definitely.
timing right now. So we have one question from Janine, and is,
Mhm.
hi Christopher, what mistakes should someone starting out newly in tech avoid?
Gotcha. Be a huge mistake, right? And everyone is going to end up falling into it, is in thinking you know everything right off the bat, right? There's been points where I've shut down networks because I thought I knew what I was doing, right? And then take down, for example, to school. I took down the school, but I'm the only one. I have to fix this, and so I had the entire weekend to go ahead and fix it. And like, okay, I called the principal. Hey, the school is back up. The students come back in now. I did it before the week. But it's stuff like that, right? Um, Thinking you know everything without first asking questions. Especially if you work with seniors, I believe the very important thing you can do is ask as many questions as possible. Never
Mm.
be afraid to ask questions, or never be afraid to reach out for help. Always reach out for help. So I would say that's the biggest mistake, is not reaching out for help and thinking that, oh, I know what I'm doing, and then end up shutting the network down. And then having to do it. So they have to fix it. So yeah, that's my answer to that. But if you can do that, if you can ask questions, reach out for help, you will run less into those issues. But everyone that's in networking has shut down some type of network. But um, but I feel like that will save your butt further down the line. Always ask for help.
You know, I have a running joke that
Mhm.
any day that a junior software engineer doesn't break production, that's a successful day.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's true. It's really true, man.
So I see you share your journey a lot on Twitter.
Mhm.
What inspired that?
Oh yeah, so it was a while back. It was more of like I had the Twitter hanging around, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. I had like different cybersecurity content on there, but I wasn't really paying attention. I was more on the LinkedIn side and posting everything on LinkedIn, and then I was posting a lot of stuff on Instagram. But then I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and give more love to Twitter, right? So I went ahead and started going back on some of my content and reposting that stuff, but now on Twitter, and just kept doing that and just kept uploading that. And it was sort of like in the beginning, it was sort of like a platform that I just sat to the side and I'll just take content from my Instagram or LinkedIn and post it on Twitter. But
Mm.
then as my Twitter started to grow and everything like that, and because of the consistency with posting more on there, I started paying more attention to that and actually posting a lot more. And then I realized, there's more of a personal. See, with Instagram, when you post things on there, you don't really communicate a lot with people there. With
People say
Twitter,
cool, nice, drop five
yeah,
emojis.
yeah, but with Twitter, it's more personal. You can get more personal with it, but the amount of people that can follow you and you can start conversations with, I think it was that personality, that that closeness with followers. I believe that what really drove me more into Twitter. LinkedIn was more on like the professional side, so I may
So
post some
you gotta be.
craziness on Twitter, and I'll
It's
be
not
good.
gonna make it there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's Twitter is more of, it just felt free. It just felt
Uh,
real free to just post whatever you want. And seeing everyone else that's in tech too also post their content, I could just see
yeah.
that vast amount of content on Twitter. So that's what prompted me to do more Twitter.
It was so interesting that I was having the same exact conversation with someone yesterday. It's like
Mhm.
I remember months ago people were saying that Twitter was gonna die.
Yeah.
But now I feel like it's probably like the hottest social media platform at the moment.
Uh
And
huh.
it's also interesting that on Twitter last year. I engaged. It's not really a flex, but it's just like just to show how interesting Twitter is as a platform. I engaged two different billionaires
Yeah.
on the platform. So I made a tweet. I think Elon made a tweet about creators getting paid, and I think I asked a question and he responded.
And
I
he
don't really
responded.
see that happening anywhere else.
No one, no,
And
and
and there's another. So I read a book called Build
mhm,
by, oh my god, I completely forgot his name now. But anyway, he's also a billionaire. Tweeted about it. Tweeted back at me. So completely kind of like to validate your point around
yeah,
like it's that village square where the whole idea is conversational and it's not like people posting up and acting. And in the second case, I wasn't even necessarily referencing the person, but still felt the
yeah.
need to engage me.
Exactly. It's that engagement. That was the word, the key word that I was looking for. It's that engagement. You'd be surprised you get a response from someone like, "Oh man, he responded to me," or like getting a follower from someone who took part in writing the CCNP and CCIE book. I'm like, "Oh man, he you know." Uh, so yeah, it's stuff like that, right? And it's great having that engagement with both the followers and people that's in the industry. And then again, right, that make great connections that way.
Hmm.
Having that international connection with people, I think that's
Yep.
very important too.
Yeah, yeah. Alexandra actually earlier in the stream was giving a shout out saying, "I'm very excited, can't wait." Hey, we're happy to have you, Alexandra.
Thank you.
Um, so another question that we have from Trey is, "What are some entry level jobs that can help me gain exposure to networking?"
Gotcha, gotcha. I will say that definitely a knock role where you're a junior knock analyst, someone anything related to the knock. The reason why I say that is because of the amount of craziness that goes on in the knock.
Mm,
You're that first line of defense.
mm,
Whenever any company goes down or they're having experiencing network issues, there may be a circuit issue, it may be a firewall issue, it may be something's wrong with a switch or router, maybe a core is down, and you have to escalate it to an engineer to figure out, okay, what the heck is going on? 50 sites are down all at once. Something went down,
mm,
right? It was a central point of failure somewhere, right? But getting those calls and then working at that beginning level at the knock, and then working at or answering phone calls, but now analyzing the network, logging into their Cisco Meraki's and seeing, okay, I see their ISP one is up, or I see that their ISP two is up and their ISP one is up. Okay, maybe it switched because of the primary went down and now it's on the secondary. We have to call whoever, maybe the company resells circuits. Let's call the ISP to see and test the circuit to see if they can fix it. If we can't do that, we got to call the tech out to go ahead and repair the circuit. Yada yada
mm,
yada, things like that, right? Or um, logging into their we at the knock we call them ad trans, but they were like they were very similar to Cisco devices, but they were more of like voice focused. But
mm,
logging into and seeing their voice traffic, things of that nature, you gain a lot of experience in the knock, and a lot of times it will be remote. But there also may be an office you walk into, and or it's hybrid. My position at the knock was hybrid, so it was remote and also in the office 3 days in the week. But it is getting that exposure. Expose yourself to all the issues that a company will have network wise. Seeing all the different craziness that goes on in networks. There's always something going to be down, especially if bad weather happens. And now you're
mm,
getting calls constantly, one after the other. Oh, our internet. Well, of course it's down. You guys just had a tornado or it's a snowstorm going. You're going to get calls regardless. But seeing all those tickets go through and seeing like 100 tickets for the same problem, then have to create a master ticket saying he's all the tickets under this master ticket. They all having the same issue because of this snowstorm. You're being exposed. It's that exposure. You're getting exposed to
mm,
all the networking issues. And then when you move up towards how I went to as a network technician, and being at the site and seeing them have those same issues, now oh, it's because of this, because of your
mm,
experience from being at the knock. And then also being as an engineer, seeing that, but now you're at an engineer level, right? And you're having the knock escalate things to you. but it's because of you having some of that knowledge when you were working at the knock and working at the tech role. You know, you're bringing that with you. So definitely, it's the craziness at the knock. I believe is the greatest thing you can get, the greatest experience you can get coming into networking. So,
That's really dope.
mm,
Um, so, what really excites you the most about network engineering?
mm.
And seeing as you kind of like make switches around, is this
Yeah.
something that you see yourself staying with for the longest time,
Yeah,
or
man.
or
So yeah, so I've always been like that ever since I was young. Maybe I got diagnosed for it. I don't know, but but yeah, it's because of so many things that goes on in tech. You know, I would do this right, and then be like, "Oh man, this is cool," and then I find this and be like, "Oh man, I want to do this right." But but what excites me the most about networking is the fact of you really at most of the time the entire company's in your hands some most of the times when
Mm,
you're an engineer or anything like that, right? If you're at a knock or a technician, because every company needs networks. There is,
mm,
we talk about the cloud and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, there's our routers and switches involved to build that cloud infrastructure. But even companies will have that hybrid, so they have cloud. They want their firewalls to reach out to Azure or something like that.
mm,
It's stuff like that. It's the important things. Like every business needs that cloud infrastructure. Every business needs that networking infrastructure, and that is the main way on how everyone communicates. You know, these wireless towers for our cell phones. You may see those little huts underneath those. Well, what's in those? Most likely routers and switches of someone of that sort. There's some type of
mm.
networking device there that are using those same protocols that you will learn in networking in general.
Wow.
And I think that's the thing that interests me and excites me the most when getting into networking and then being in it is just seeing how everything is communicated and then building it and then seeing it work. So I just installed a FortiGate 70F in my home from using the Xfinity box. And now you could do all this other extra stuff and all this other extra security stuff. And now I could add APs if I wanted to. I don't have to be governed to just an Xfinity box that I can't do nothing with because they block it down. I can now do so
Mm,
much more. And taking those networking skills and then going into security with it. Well, now you know networking. You can build networks. Now you can start focusing on security, add security to the network. There's so
mm.
much you can do. It's so much. It's like building armor on top of you. It's so much you can do.
Wow. That's straight up fire.
Yeah.
Um, I think we're gonna take our last audience question. And again, if you're still on the stream and you're not subscribed yet, why?
Yeah, man. Definitely subscribe.
And don't forget to share it with friends. Drop fire emojis, I think, because Chris has been straight on fire. Last question is, would you advise someone still learning to invest time in building a platform and building a brand on platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. I think the era that we're in now, I definitely believe that building that brand excels you a lot. I won't say it overtakes like skills per se, like you still need those skills, but having that brand, it it changed the way my LinkedIn was. So how I would do it is post your labs and post what you do on your LinkedIn. Not anything job related, but things that are what you're doing, what you're learning, building that portfolio, changing your LinkedIn and just not just to just hey, okay, I'm looking for this job or open it up and your resume is there, but posting what you're doing. The reason why I say that because when I was doing web design, web development, and it was a small internship, I could build a website and post my web projects there, and then bam, people just go to the website and they can click on the website and they can go to the web page I designed and developed. However, when it comes to like help desk and networking, how I'm supposed to do that. Go. I
Mm,
can what I take pictures and then post on the website. What would be the more smarter, more convenient? a more efficient way on doing that. Why not just post it on something that already exists, which was
Hmm.
LinkedIn? And now that sort of created that brand where it's like, okay, people are seeing the projects that you're doing on Twitter and LinkedIn, and now people will maybe want to do interviews with you. And then now you can post that on the front page of your LinkedIn. And now when recruiters see you and go to your LinkedIn, they can click that interview video, and then they can get a better chance. It's like, oh, this is what this guy is, right? So then when they go ahead and interview, they kind of already know who you are, right?
Yeah.
but um, but it's things like that. Building, I would say building projects and posting that kind of builds that brand for you. And then over
Mm,
time, it kind of evolves depending on how you use the platform. But I definitely would start with LinkedIn first. That's how I did it, and then that's sort of like what got me into more adding more to Twitter, taking some of that content that I would upload on LinkedIn, and then, oh, why not just post the projects on Twitter too, since I already have that content and
mm,
people see it, right? So I believe branding, especially in this day and age, is very important. But it's not so much of like super important as it is skills. And I
mm,
have experience, you still need to have that. But definitely, if you're doing projects on the side, it can just be, oh, okay, I'm replacing RAM. Post it, or maybe, you're created a group policy, or you created a mini accounts on this virtual machine on Active Directory, and you're trying to break into tech. Post it.
mm.
Keep it.
Yep.
Don't even worry about how stupid something may look, or I look kind of unintelligent. Don't worry about any of that stuff.
Mm.
Just post it. People may throw comments in the section, anything like that. Yeah, just keep posting.
And I think something that even becomes obvious as you mentioned that last point
Mhm.
is it's actually good to be ridiculous because you can even use that almost like your journal where
Mm,
in month one you're struggling to learn this concept that in month six is like, wait, why was I struggling to learn that?
mhm.
And that shows growth. But you don't only see your growth. People who've been following you also see your growth.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And I would look at videos where it's like I was struggling with OSPF. I still got a video there when I was trying to figure out, OSPF issues that I was having. And then I look back at it, it's like, oh man, like I can look back at this, but I can still learn from it, right? Because I can look back on. But then I can see, like, man, you're seeing, and this is what I used to do with my art and my when I used to draw and sketch and all that. Kept all of my sketchbooks, and to this day, I have a sketchbook that I will go into. But you have something you can look back on years back and just see your growth. That's
Yep.
something that increases your confidence. It's like, I am growing. You may not see it in the moment, but as an artist, right? I believe everyone is an artist, whether you're in tech or not. You stand back, you look back at your painting, and then you see, oh man, look at all the stuff I did. I am moving. You know,
Mm,
you just have to step back. And I think being able to post and save that content somewhere, that gives you that ability to step back and see and view how much you have grown since then. It's always
yeah.
like I've said, it's the main thing is always being better than you were yesterday.
Mm.
I think that's the main thing. You don't have to be perfect, but you're always going to be better than where you were yesterday. So,
Wow. That is a perfect way to land it.
mm,
Be better than you were yesterday. I think if you have that growth goal, it's something that's easy to beat and something that's also significant enough that it matters beating it. Thank you so much, Chris. I think
yeah,
this has
man.
been a great one. Usually, we always reserve this to the end. So, is there anything you want to call out, shout out, maybe any last words of encouragement
Oh
to get
man, yeah.
started
Last
along
words of encouragement. Like I've always say, man, you yeah, new comment, right? You got this, right? You got this.
with?
Yep, you got this, right? Never give up. You know, you're gonna have hard times, right? And you may not be able to take it, right? You may have to step back, but just keep moving forward. Maybe you do have to change that position because of something, but keep moving forward. Don't stop the journey, because there's always going to be roadblocks ahead or things ahead. Um, many people are different. I deal with stress, right? But always step back. You know, stand back up. You know, de-stress, and then go back in. You're going to learn more stuff every time. You're going to get hit. Every time you get hit, you're going to learn something. You're just going to keep going back. Definitely focus on mental health. I believe that's very important. But yeah, I always say, just keep going, just keep whatever you're doing, just keep going. You may not even be in tech, just keep going, man. If you're trying to get into it, definitely just keep at it. You're going to have hard times, but what I found is whenever it gets to that point where it's like, I had enough, like I can't do this. That's when you start seeing changes. When you start seeing something happen.
Mhm.
So just keep going.
Push your own limits.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yep.
that is so important. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah.
When I first saw you, went through your profile, saw everything, I knew I had to talk to you. And
Yeah.
now that I know it's so worth it. I'm really looking forward to rewatching this and clipping it up.
Awesome. Yeah, man.
But yeah, definitely, guys, this has been another great episode of the Working in Tech Stream. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you again next Friday, where we're going to be talking to a
Bye,
different guest about
guys.
UI UX. It's been a great one. Bye.